podcast today. Today we are sitting with Javi Melo, producer, engineer, mix engineer, songwriter. I've known Javi now for probably about how long would you say?
2-3 years.
2-3 years?
Yeah.
Has it really been that long?
Yeah.
Ever since the days of our Anthem Music TV live sessions that we used to film for local bands, Javi actually handled some of the mixing for it in tandem with our old mix engineer, Chris Jacobson, who did a lot of work on a lot of the old Anthem Music live session projects. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Javi's background, what he does, kind of his way he works in the studio. And so tell us, how's everything going?
Everything's pretty good, in this crazy times, trying times right now. Thankfully, I've still been working a lot and getting jobs here and there. And, there's plenty of ways to make money doing this, even when you're quarantined. So
yeah, I could imagine you endless work because everybody's sitting at home making music nonstop now.
I think they're getting ready for when everything dies down a little bit. Everybody wants to be the first one out the gates running.
Did you notice since everybody stopped producing or I should say, since everybody stopped touring and really playing music live, have you noticed a dip in the amount of music that's coming out?
I actually noticed an increase in the amount of actual music online, the output of
That's
musicians.
what I would imagine.
Yeah, it was exactly that. So it could have gone one or the other. People would have gotten lazy and just not done anything. And, oh, man, everything's bad. Let's just not do anything. Or you'd be the productive person and just go way in. And thankfully, dudes like me have been getting, we've been staying afloat because of that. And honestly, producers are probably the safest dudes to be around. We never leave the studio.
Yeah.
I don't even know when sun up or sundown is anymore. I just lose track, dude.
Do you, so since you've been on quarantine, have you been working on a lot of your own music?
Yeah. So I've been, whenever I do break away a little bit from working on another artist's stuff, I do, some as a mental release. I work on a lot of things that I write in different genres sometimes in my preferred genre, which is rock and metal, But I've got some things coming out. I don't know if they'll ever see the light of day or not, but they're there.
So when it comes to producing, tell me a little bit about your role as a producer, as far as how you work with the bands, what you do to help them write. Because I know as a producer, there's a lot of co-writing that goes into it. Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, no, totally. So as a producer, I guess a producer goes anything from, pre-production all the way to mastering in these modern times.
Yeah.
And you wear a lot of hats in the studio. Everything from, co-writer to psychologist. I mean,
and what do you mean by psychologist?
Oh man, sometimes
you're basically giving them therapy during their session.
I mean, it just depends on the band and the guys. You have to feel it out. I have to make sure they're comfortable, and then you're comfortable with them as well, and those kinds of things. And it's musicians, so we're all very very emotional people.
Yeah.
So if one little thing gets offset, then it becomes now it's you have to kind of defuse situations, and it's not super common, but it sometimes happens, especially when you're doing co-writes.
Yeah.
Maybe you infringe on somebody else's creative.
Yeah.
And, if you change a little part here and there because you feel like it flows better, but the person, it's not even an ego thing, just the person was so dead set on playing something else. And now it could become an issue. It just depends on the band, how receptive they are to it. I mean, you just got to kind of explain to them, we're all on the same team. We're ultimately trying to make sure that this, hits and it does well for you guys. And I'm on your team. I'm not here to change your stuff. I don't care for that. I want to make sure your song and your vision and your best vision of the song comes to fruition,
Yeah, and I could imagine that when you put so many people, and granted, most bands are going to be around 4 or 5 people, but when you put that many people into a room, you're always going to have creative differences and maybe some butting heads on which direction you want to go. And I think, I have a minimal recording and audio engineer background. But even with me, when I was working in the studio with bands and stuff, the first thing we always talked about was that everybody in the band had a clear vision of the direction they wanted to go. And I think that's so important because if you have 5 people writing different types of music, it doesn't, like, sometimes you can get lucky and you put it all together and it's like, wow, we just made this whole new thing. But most of the time I feel like, you put all that stuff together and it just sounds like a giant mess.
Yeah, you definitely want to, that's again where the psychology thing comes into play. You definitely want to have a meeting with them even before you start working, to try to get the scope of the band, like where they're going, what their vision is. I've had it to the point where I've even made like a Venn diagram, like if we were back in school, and I've told them, hey man, jot down all of the bands you love and let's see which ones you guys have in common. Okay. This more applies to bands that don't really have an idea of what they want, but they just want to play music together.
Yeah.
So then we figure out like the scope of the band, and then, I'll give them some time to think about it if they do want to go in that route. And if they do, then now we have more of a clear image and vision of where this is all going. So that way, we're never really losing that much focus. I mean, sometimes it happens still.
Of course.
You just, the mind is a crazy thing. Sometimes you just want to revert back to where you're comfortable with. And a lot of the times being in the studio, especially with a producer, rather than somebody just pressing record, for me at least, I definitely push bands to come outside of their comfort zone.
And I think that's important, especially in a world where, did you see that news article about the owner of Spotify saying, artists can't get away with just producing an album every 3 years and expect to make money off of it, which is bullshit. But I digress. Now, as that being the first portion of it, tell me, like, what's the next step when you're trying? So this is on the edge of like this is talking about on the topic of like the whole producer, the whole producer role. So tell me, like, when you're in that producer role, after you do your initial meeting with the band, you guys talk about their direction, you do all your diagrams and however you kind of organize everything. What's the next step that you usually do? Because I assume there's more steps involved before you even hit the studio to record. So tell me a little bit about those steps.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, typically the way it would go for me is I'll get contact via email, whether it's via my website or just a direct message or anything like that on Facebook.
So do you do any outreach, or is this all just stuff that's coming? It just happens to be coming in.
So, I mean, well, when I first started, I was definitely doing a lot of cold outreach to bands that I thought were cool. Just hoping for somebody to give you a chance, Yeah. This was like 10 years ago,
So it's been a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. Now I'm blessed enough to the point where they are coming to me. I have a certain sound that I do. Most producers will agree that they strive for a certain sound, and I have a certain sound, and I've got my portfolio online, so they could definitely listen and check out what I sound like before they even think about booking me. But then, there's several steps after that, man. So, doesn't matter which way they contact me.
Sure.
The first step, honestly, back in the days, it wasn't like this. It was just actually me. Now I actually siphon it off to my manager. So he'll handle that for me. And, once all that, because I hate having the whole price thing and all that conversation. I don't like it.
That's all part of the business, it is, man. You gotta get comfortable with that.
No, it absolutely is.
Hey, but listen, when you talk about pricing to people, if you're confident in talking about your pricing and you come off and you could show them this is why my pricing is this, that's always, a very beneficial conversation to have. Shows transparency. It shows what you're doing, how you're pricing yourself, and that you're not just relying on your industry standard in order to price yourself.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and that does get discussed to some degree after the fact.
Sure.
But just the initial, I have a manager now, and he just takes care of that for me. And so, I mean, just with the band that I've been working with and for the past like week and a half, they contacted me, siphoned it off to my manager. He discussed on like possible tentative pricing because there wasn't anything definite.
Sure.
So then the band got over to me, and I started to talk to them, and we decided to meet up. I always do that. I always do like a meetup because I believe that your time is the most valuable form of currency that you have.
Agreed.
And I respect your time, and I ask the same thing, to respect mine. So I want to meet up with you. I'll buy them coffee or lunch or whatever.
Sure.
And we'll just hang out for like a good hour so I get a feel for them to see what they're about and see if I'm a good fit or not,
Yeah, and I think that's really important, especially when you're stepping into a producer role. You're going to be working with these bands very closely. You're going to be, helping them write. So you want to make sure that, not only you're a good fit for them, but your style is a good fit for them.
Correct.
Because I think all of those things together kind of really make or break somebody's decision when it comes to hiring a producer to work on their music.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then, and during that meeting, let's say that I'm set on the meeting and I like what they're about, and I dig the music, like their demos, if they have any to show me, and I'll get a feel for what it is that they want. I mean, do they want me to enhance what they've already gotten, like what they already have written, and play producer on that? Or do they want to do like a full co-write with me, which is they have a few ideas, but they don't actually have anything concrete, so they want me to turn it into a song? Or are they coming with me with just influences, and they just want me to turn that into a song with them? So I'm never going to actually sit there and take their guitar and write their stuff for them.
Sure.
It is them. It is very immersive. Like, it is going to be them. But it helps having somebody, with an objective view like me saying, hey, this is what you want to sound like. This is the scope of what we're going for. Let's try this, let's try that, and trying new things out. And that's how you create a song.
Yeah, and I think with your background in recording, mixing, mastering, producing, it's so important for some bands to, get in with a producer, because to have that outside influence, that could be what takes you to that next level.
Absolutely.
That you're looking to go to. And I think, a lot of bands look at a producer in a negative way, where they say, okay, well, I don't want somebody else writing my songs. I want complete creative control. And you could still have that while having those outside influences come in and help you sculpt the song into what you see as perfection for the song that you were writing. And I think, the whole producer role is so important to the whole writing process, especially when you're trying to record a full length or anything like that. I think the producer role is very important, and I think it's very underutilized. But at the same time, with music recording being able to be done so inexpensively, and most people, I've seen bands release full albums that are recorded in their bedrooms, and they sound incredible. And that just goes to show you, with a little bit of engineering knowledge as far as how to run your DAW, whether it's Logic, Pro Tools, or in your case Cubase. But just knowing how to run those DAWs and just getting a cheap interface, you can literally record an album at home, it's a really cool idea. But at the same time, a lot of people don't understand the necessity of going to a studio, being able to use all of this really, really amazing analog outboard gear that literally takes your sound to the next level, even as far as like AD converters, like those things are so important when it comes to like actually releasing a radio ready song.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people don't understand a lot of that.
Yeah. And one of the things that you just touched on something very important there, because I 100% agree with you when it comes to, I've heard some bands come up with stuff in their bedrooms that have been super killer. Maybe the mixes haven't been there, but you're mixing in a bedroom. That's not ideal at all. You can send it off for mixing to dudes like me or somebody else. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it all really starts with the songwriting, man.
100%.
So if the songwriting is there and it's good, it's chances are the whole product is going to end up being pretty good.
I agree.
Or incredible, actually. And I've done it with a couple of bands. I've done exactly that they've recorded their stuff in their own bedroom, at the comfort of their home. Their songwriting has been good. So what it's funny, because what they've done is they sent me crappy sounding demos, and I've rearranged a song for them. And then they've gone back and re-recorded it themselves with all the feel that they want, sent it to me for mixing, and it's been some of the best work I've done.
Yeah, and I think that's the way I love doing it when I'm working with a producer. I like presenting either full songs, ideas for songs, or what I already have in the works, and then showing it to them, letting them kind of help with the arrangements and stuff. And then once I have everything down, then I'll go back, re-record the whole track, and then send it out for mixing and mastering. Yeah. Granted, we have a lot of different setup than most people would have at home, but kind of the same idea.
So, and some bands want the immersiveness of being there while you do the same process, where you're kind of just like rearranging their song for them if they're open to it, and then you're tracking all the finals right there too.
I love being in the studio.
Yeah, me too. I've always loved that. When I was coming up in bands, we've all been in bands, dude.
Oh yeah. Too many
bands to count. We've all like, I've always loved going into a studio to actually do stuff.
Yeah. And I think, atmosphere, ambience, all that plays very big into the actual recording process and the feel that the record gets at the end when you cut it. Yeah. So I think, having that studio ambience could be what kind of helps you get to that, through that writer's block or whatever you're dealing with in your plain ass, bedroom at home with your computer sitting on your bookshelf. The studios are just always a way better atmosphere. And I think, getting to be around all those people, usually you have your engineer there, you have a producer there, you have the whole band there, and having all of those people in the same room, it creates excitement. And with that excitement creates creativity. Correct. And I think having all of those, key factors in place makes for a really great writing experience, which then can translate into great material.
Yeah. The vibe has to be set.
Vibe is everything.
Yeah, absolutely everything.
That. Look at my office. So tell me, when it came to like starting your business and actually like maybe some of the first clients that you took on for co-writes and stuff, or for producing, what were some of the hardships that you like faced trying to break into that co-writing producer I guess industry you would call it?
Sure. So, for everybody's a little bit different. In my case, so I guess before I answer that, I have to explain to you how I jumped into this.
Sure.
Because it has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
So basically, I've always been cutting demos since like 2008 or 9. Mm-hmm. I've been cutting demos for bands and my own bands, et cetera, et cetera. So I've always had an interest in this stuff. And then in 2012, 13, something like that, we ended up going to North Carolina. My latest band before, we broke up, ended up going to North Carolina, and I met my audio mentor there, this gentleman named Kyle Odell. Dude's right now he's on his way to LA to produce some big band. I don't know who it is, but the dude's definitely climbing in the industry.
We've talked a lot about him over the past couple of years.
The guy's a monster.
I've heard good things.
Yeah, he's a monster. I love that guy. But he's been somewhat has taken a role as a mentor in my life when it comes to audio. And when by going there to visit his studio and record our little EP that we did with him, something just woke up in me, man. And I just said, dude, I want to do this like for real now. You know what I mean? And
sometimes that's what it takes to get to that, get to that point where you're like kind of almost like ready to take the step into the industry. You're immersed with somebody. And I did the same thing. When I first started in the wedding photography industry, concert photography industry, event industry, first thing I always did was I found somebody who was in that industry, spoke to them, told them, hey, I want to come out and shoot a couple weddings for you. I don't have experience as a wedding photographer, but I've been doing photography for 15 years, and I'm very eager to learn. I'm willing to work for free, which I know a lot of people say don't do. But in this case, I was trying to break into the wedding industry. I needed a mentor to learn everything I needed to learn. So what better way than to learn on the go as you're actually doing it hands-on. And I got lucky that I found a mentor who was very open to me coming in and working with her. And she actually helped me, really get the ball rolling on my business. So I think having a mentor is such a big part of finding, where you want to go in the business and really just developing workflows and understanding how that certain business flows. And like you said, it's not the same for everyone, but having that mentor there kind of gives you a little more of a route than maybe you had previously.
Yeah, no, he definitely served as a mentor and a roadmap actually for my career. And, I've had several conversations with them about like doing this for bands, like exclusively just going solo doing this, meaning that he lived in North Carolina. I was all the way in Florida. So it was a little bit of a hard thing. So there's a lot of traveling back and forth.
So what did you guys do?
Together?
Yeah.
I sat in a lot of his sessions and, he would just send me like he would trust my ears to the point where he would send me like unfinished work and say, hey, Javi, what do you think of this, man? And I would give him like an honest feedback. And he liked the fact that I wasn't like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. I would literally tell him like, hey, dude, I think like you have way too much bottom end on this or, on the mix standpoint. And he'd be like, all right, cool. And then he'd just get it done. And then he'd be like, hey, what do you think of this now? Like he even trusted me. I won't say the name of the band, but it was a big band on a big label.
Yeah.
He was sending me a couple of couple little clips. I didn't know who that band was at the time, and I had no idea they were a signed band. He was just sending me clips because he couldn't say anything, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's under some NDA or anything.
Sure.
But he just couldn't tell me anything. He would just say, hey, do you like this? Is the song cool? And then I noticed one thing about him. He kept harping on, is the song good? He didn't really care about the mix or anything like that yet. It was just, is the song good? And that, like, it hit, man. And I was like, oh my God, I get it. He's harping on the right thing here. Everybody's so concerned with, like, is my kick drum or snare, like, super sick? But they're not worried about the song. No one cares about your snare or your kick drum if the song sucks.
Exactly.
So he just kept harping on that. And it woke me up, dude. And I just wanted to do this. You know, I came into it with the want to be a co-writer and a producer. Mixing was very secondary. It is now one of my primary things. I love it. I ended up really loving doing it, but
you're one of the few.
Yeah, but
I know me personally, I do not enjoy it one bit.
No, I really ended up liking it. There's a certain element in mixing that just makes a song come alive too.
Yeah, of course.
But the songwriting, man, that's really where it was. And so after that, you know, I decided to take it upon myself to do it. And then as far as hardship goes, which was one of the questions you asked, was basically getting a band to let me have a fair shot at their music. Mm-hmm. But it couldn't be just a starting band.
No.
I wanted it to be a band that was somewhat like established to an extent.
Yeah, to give you something to work off of.
Yeah,
sure.
And I was lucky enough to pester this one band enough to where they came in and did a cover with me. And it's not one of my best mixes or anything, but I guess I just arranged it in such a way. The damn thing went viral in a week, dude. It got 7 million views in a week.
Holy crap.
So here you got my terrible mix with 7 million views with my name all over it. I'm just crying. But I'm like, oh man, this band's never going to like trust me again, yada, yada, yada. They kept coming back more and more and more. I ended up doing a whole EP for them. Now I'm doing a full length for them. So
you know. That goes to what you said, you know, it's not always about the mix. It's about the song. The song must have been good because 7 million people fucking viewed it.
I mean, it was a cover.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It was the biggest song of the year that year. But
what song was it, if you don't mind me asking?
Man, I'm almost afraid to say it. But
no, say it.
It was Despacito.
What's wrong with that
version of Despacito?
Hey, listen, there is nothing wrong with that. When it comes to doing covers and stuff, the top 40s are the best stuff to hit because that's what's going to get you traction on the internet. Yeah. So when it comes to YouTube, that's what's going to, you know, do the best is going to be stuff that you're doing. Cause like, I know plenty of people who do covers for a living. Like that's all they do on YouTube. And they're very successful doing it because they know the exact targets to hit. They know what songs they're doing. They are hitting the top 100 on certain artists before they get big. So that way, as soon as they hit the top, then next thing you know, all their videos are going viral. They're hitting millions of views because of that. So I think that's a good way to do it. Like, even if you were working on a cover, it still was a way in the door for you to begin, them, you know? Yeah. And now they basically have given you so much experience from all the stuff you've, you know, co-written with them and produced with them. So at the end of the day, you know, you did this one small cover where you did an arrangement and that opened the door for you, which is amazing because that does not happen for a lot of people. No. And so, you know, once that happened, what kind of steps did you take to keep that momentum going and to keep bringing people in?
So basically, just to touch back bases with them.
Sure.
After pestering them for like a whole year to just, hey, let me work on a demo. Like, I don't even, like, you don't have to, you know, pay me. I just want to work on a demo with you. You can go record it somewhere else if you'd like. During those times, they were actually already scheduled to go with a big producer. Mm-hmm. And they did go with them, and the album sounded phenomenal. So here's my little Despacito mix next to that monster of an album, and I'm just crying, dude. I'm like, whatever. But the damn thing goes viral to the point where I think Sony or something like that even tells them to like take it down.
Oh God!
Like it got that bad.
Yeah. So you were saying that you like to meet up with your clients before you even start the process, because I think it's so important to, like, you know, get to know them. You make sure you guys work well together. Do you do this for all of your clients? Is there ever like what's the reasoning behind it?
Well, I started to implement that as of last year or so. Mm-hmm. And there's several different reasons behind it. But to answer your question, sure, yes. I now almost like do it every time. And if you can't meet up in person with me, there is like, it's 2020.
Yeah.
We could do Facebook, we could do whatever, as long as I have some sort of face interaction with you, and we could talk about everything. And so basically I'm just trying to get a scope for where the band is. What kind of references do they have? If their mix style suits mine, because I need to know that stuff, Is it like more of a raw kind of mix, more of a live type mix, or super processed stuff? And that helps me determine if I'm the right fit or not, because, I do have a sound. And if, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I can't mix in other things,
sure.
But it's just what I like, man. I still want to really like what I do. So
yeah, and I get that. And of course, you being a mix engineer and working on, a certain style of music, I think that's, really important that you develop that style of music. You don't want to be generally the jack of all trades, but I think to have that outside knowledge of being able to work with different various genres will definitely open you up, I would think, to being able to bring in all sorts of different clients. Because, you've done, I've heard other stuff you've done everything from pop, rock, metal. So you have a pretty good catalog of stuff that you've worked on.
Yeah.
That's pretty different from each other.
Right.
So I have a really good question for you in terms of how you meet up with your clients over like Facebook chat or Zoom or whatever the case may be. When it comes to, actually collaborating in a studio setting, we're in kind of like, COVID-19 era. How do you actually meet up to record or to produce or to co-write with some of these bands?
So there's a lot of different ways to do this. So before COVID, when the band was from out of state, so I worked with this really awesome band from Virginia not too long ago.
Can you say their name?
Yeah, absolutely. They're called Gravebound. They're awesome band. Awesome
Very cool.
dudes. I actually did not get to mix the stuff, but I ended up doing the co-write for the song, and they're coming back to me for more co-writes. And I like that relationship. They're phenomenal writers, and it was very, very smooth process. So the way they were doing it was they were getting it to a certain point, showing me, and then I would say, okay, send me the song in full that you have it, and I would restructure some things, send it back. Do you guys like this? Just like the MP3, the actual MP3.
Yeah.
And do you guys like this? Do you not like this? They would have some suggestions. And then finally I would say, hey, now send me all the stems. So I'll put it together in my DAW. And then I would start adding post-production stuff to it. And bells here, trap hats here, or, creating loops and spacing things out and making like a bridge to the song. And I would send it back. Like, do you guys like this? And, you get a yes or no. They would vote on it, whatnot. And, just kind of went that route until we were fully happy with it. Then they tracked it all themselves and sent it off for mixing.
Oh, wow. So I assume you would get you'd get notes back from them on anything that they wanted to fix or change.
Yeah. And I'm very personable with that stuff, man. It got to the point where they were literally just picking up their phone and sending me like a voice memo.
Oh,
like,
awesome.
Oh, hey, dude, at this part or whatever, this part sounds really sus. Can we take it out? Sure.
And by what do you mean by sus? I understand what sus is, but in this case, what do you mean?
So sus meaning like this part is suspect. Like it's weird. It doesn't really vibe with what their vision was.
It doesn't really fit the overall
doesn't really fit
style.
What they want. So let's remove it.
Gotcha. And so when you're doing like those kind of co-writing process, do you feel like it's more difficult for you to connect with the band you're working with when you are working remotely? I know there's all sorts of new systems out now where you can literally record remotely with like zero latency, which blows my mind. I don't even understand how that's possible because doing video and doing audio, I deal with, latency on a daily basis, especially when it comes to live streams, things like that. It is very annoying. Yeah. How do you have issues with that? I guess you would probably just do it in a DAW where you would kind of syncopate everything.
So sometimes,
I don't know if that's a word either.
Sometimes we'll use plugins like Audio Movers where it would let me almost like the desktop control thing.
Okay.
Where I could control like their tracking through mine, but I'm not too well versed in it. So the few times I've tried it, I've only had success a very small handful of times doing it.
Okay.
But with them, what it ended up being was more like they just had it open and I had it open and we would go back and forth.
Okay.
Which works too. It is a little harder to answer your question. It is a little harder to do.
I could imagine.
Than them being right there in the studio with you. But, it still gets done. So it's not for lack of trying. It still gets done in a very timely fashion,
Are you guys usually on video chat while you're doing it?
Sometimes.
Okay. I feel like it's always better to just like we are right now, to be face to face with somebody while you're working on something. There's just such a different feel and vibe to it than, doing it over the internet and recording and sending stuff back and forth. But I get the necessity of it because obviously, if you're in an area that doesn't predominantly have a lot of up and coming bands, or there's not a lot of, big bands coming out of your area, then your only other option is to outsource to, different states, different regions, and kind of hit all those other, areas, and not, especially working in independent music, that a lot of bands don't always have the capital to be able to just get in their van and drive down with all their equipment and spend 5 days with you.
Yeah. And back in the days, just even 5 years ago, location was a huge thing.
Oh yeah.
It is not anymore.
Well, no, I would assume with all the,
it's still important, but
but with all of the new technology coming out and everything in 2020, I mean, even I think some of this technology, some of these like, what is it called? Like a cloud. Oh man, I can't remember.
Cloud-based systems.
The cloud-based systems, but the ones that are like where you can actually do remote recording over a cloud, like that stuff exists now. And I'm sure it existed a few years ago, but now in today's climate where you can't be face to face with people, I assume it's getting used even more widely around in the music industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because even through the COVID thing, because of the pandemic, because it's hard to meet up with people,
sure,
and to see if they've been safe or not. Even with a band from my area, like locally from my area, I basically took the same approach that I took with this Virginia band, and it worked out just fine.
Yeah, and I kind of think you have to adapt, to the current climate that you're facing. There's always going to be something that, could perpetually cause you to have to change up the way you're doing things a little bit as far as your workflow of co-writing and bringing people into your studio.
And a great thing is knowing, I would say it is almost, it's not mandatory, but it is almost in a way mandatory,
sure.
quote unquote, that somebody in the band knows how to operate a DAW, even at a very entry level.
Sure.
And can put together a drum preset or something over something and send you demos. That alone right there for a dude like me is a huge help.
Yeah.
Because now I can hear what you're doing. Now I can get into it, and it makes it a lot easier for the writing process to happen remotely.
So when you have a band like that that maybe can't do that because they don't have anyone in their band who is experienced in any sort of DAW sense, for that, would you just have them like record a practice or? So
actually, it's funny they say that because the band I'm currently working with, that is their problem right now. They don't have a way to record themselves. They don't really get it.
Gotcha.
Working on their stuff. I mean, they're very, very clever dudes, but they just don't get that. So with them, they did show me a couple of videos of their practices, but it's just, depends how you record that, because sometimes all you hear is cymbal wash, them being a harder band.
Yeah, of course.
So with them, I had to make the exception. So it's like, hey, let's include it into your budget. Let's rent out a studio. Let's go ahead and work on it. And we'll do our best to keep very sanitized and stuff. So it is a risk. It is a risk. Far be it to say like just wearing a face mask is enough. It's not, but
yeah,
we're trying.
Yeah.
We're keeping somewhat of a distance.
Smart.
And we're just doing the best that we can. Luckily, it's a nice big open area, so it really does help. And that's the way it's been, with them.
Do you go into quarantine as soon as you're done working with these bands?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I think that's really important. And even same here. Most of our guests are remote because of everything going on. We can't be bringing people into our studio every day, and luckily because we've both been tested recently, we're good. But aside from that, I think it's really important to sit down and be able to collaborate with people when it comes to producing music, because I think just being able to sit there and like kind of let it sink in and listen to something somebody's playing Especially for me, I am my most productive when it comes to producing when I'm sitting listening to somebody play something over and over and over, and then my creative juices start flowing, and then I can actually like pinpoint, like, oh, this is going to sound really, really sick here, or this is going to sound fucking awesome here. You guys should totally do this. Oh, I hated that. Don't do that ever again. For me, it helps me in the creative process to be able to have myself immersed in all of that in real time rather than sitting with a recording trying to figure it out. But I know a lot of people are different when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
When it comes to your co-writing and collabing, what is your process in picking the project? So now you've already met with them. You already know that, your styles mesh, basically they're perfect clients for you. What's the next step in your process?
So it kind of depends on how far along they are in it. So I'll give you 2 examples.
Sure.
If a band's already got it, they've already got their songs, and they just want to shape it more in a certain direction, then we just kind of listen to their influences, see what they want. This is not ripping off. This is just listening for influence.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And then we start to see some of the production tricks that they use, some of the arrangements on the song that they use, and we start to reference back to seeing if, we're doing the same thing or similar things or even in the same spectrum. And then once we make sure that we are, now we take it a step further because you never want to sound the same.
No.
Now we take it a step further and we see how we can think outside of the box and make it even crazier. And that's really where the song comes alive for me, because then I go into like mad genius mode and I start trying all these crazy things. I'll get told a lot of times that I'm just doing too much. Sometimes I'll get told, dude, that's perfect. That's the way to do it. We're so glad. Yeah, it's just give or take. It's never always going to be a 10 out of 10 hit.
No.
But you're just trying things. That's the beautiful thing about it. Now you're trying things. The other example would be a band who, the scope of the sound is where you guys are meshing and everything's cool, but they don't have anything written. So now they hit you with an influence. And I'll do my homework. And I recommend this. Most producers do it. Do your due diligence here. Like, do it. Listen to what the band has to say. Don't just be like, I'm a big bad producer. I know what I'm doing. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're good. No. We're good. We got you.
Yeah, we got it. No, listen to what they have to say.
How do you prepare for stuff like that?
Oh man, I ask for references. I tell them, give me like 3 bands that you really love that you kind of want to mold yours after, and they'll give it to me, and I'll download these songs. I'll buy them legally.
Good.
Support.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
Or Spotify it. And
no, we don't use that. We don't use that word here.
Oh, my bad.
I'm just kidding.
So I'll download it usually because I need to put it in my DAW in my session. And I'll start to listen, and I'll find out more about it and just kind of do my homework, like what kind of, like if it's a band, like a metal band that does a lot of like monophonic riffs, I'll know like, hey, maybe I should come into the writing session with ideas of how to write like monophonic riffs and stuff like that. Those who don't know, monophonics is just single note riffs. Like you're not hitting chords, it's just single notes. So things like that. That's a very popular thing, especially in modern metal right now. Yeah. So, just things like that. And just do your homework. Really just do your homework. And then you show up and you now have a scope of where you're going. Going back to that word, vibe and scope. We're right back to that. And now you have the intent to make the songwriting awesome. And you know what you're doing. You're not flying blind anymore. So, yeah.
I think that's important. Yeah, doing your homework, the most important thing. I think you learned that in, elementary school?
Yeah, it's your job.
Do your homework, kids.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but me, I never do things like this for the money or anything. For me, it's always out of passion. I love music. I absolutely love music. I wake up every day thinking about music. I listen to music on a daily basis. So for me, something like doing your homework on what the band wants and trying to make awesome music, it's like an unspoken rule, man.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, kind of going into what you said about it being your passion and something that you really love to do, I think another really important part of it is just that when it is that much of a passion, you're going to put everything you have into it. But you also want to keep in mind that while it is a passion of yours, it's a business at the same time, and it needs to be treated as such. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of engineers and producers and people working in the music industry really struggle, is to find their voice as a business and really understand their workflows and everything that goes into running and operating a business. And they just think about the creative aspects of it, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
Like I used to consider myself a photographer who happened to own a business. Now I'm a business owner who happens to do photography, because I knew that if I wanted my business to be successful, I had to put that focus into my business, not just my passion. So I kind of split the two. I do put a lot of time, effort, and energy into my craft because it is something I love. And I love hearing you get to talk about music, because I could tell that you're like very passionate about it, and it's a big part of your life. And I love seeing that when I talk to different people, you know, seeing how passionate they are about their craft. You know, it really, 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 really makes me happy.
Thank you.
And to even go off that, I think, you know, it just like anything else, there definitely has to be that focus on the business just as much as the craft, because I think that, you know, the business is such a huge part of everything, and such a huge part of, you know, what you're doing as a creative, because obviously you have to support yourself. And exposure is not going to, you know, pay your bills.
Yeah.
So having that idea and, you know, knowing how to run and operate your business, I think is so important. What's like one of the top things you wish you knew when you started your business?
I wish that I hadn't blurred the lines like most guys do, and gals, between being creative and running a business. But I don't regret any of it, because it really has gotten me to where I am today, where you know, doing music alone is getting me, you know, I'm living off of this.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Yeah. And that you're in a position that a lot of people aren't in, where they're able to, you know, turn making music into their livelihood. But at the same time, you know, over the years that I've known you, I've never seen somebody in the studio more in my life. I'm pretty sure like 8 days a week I'm calling you and you're like, hey man, I'm in a session, I'll have to call you back later. So seeing that, you know, that's the same thing. It's all about work ethic, you know, and it really shows through in your growth as an engineer over the past 3 years. I mean, even in the past year, that I've like, you know, had you come into our studio and recording and stuff like that, I've seen that growth, and it's incredible. So I got to commend you on that.
Appreciate that.
So going back onto the producer topic, because I do have one or two more questions that I wanted to touch on. And one of the biggest things for me, especially being in a studio where I've helped produce anything, when is it too much input?
Yeah, again, it goes back to everything always goes back to that first initial meeting. Like, you figure it out kind of there, and it depends on the band once again.
Sure.
So one of the biggest questions I'll ask the band while I'm meeting up with them is, you know, what has your past recording been like? Who have you recorded with? It's not to trash anybody. It's just so I can get an idea.
Yeah, you gauge experience.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. And I'll be like, you know, I'll ask them things like, all right, so how much input did that person give you? How much input are you looking for? And that kind of lets me know.
Okay.
You know, if it's a band that's like, that's kind of flying blind, they just want, you know, they don't know how to write what they want just yet, and they need me to help them like with their vision, then I have a lot of input, of course.
Sure.
You know, but if it's another band that's more seasoned and they have a clear idea of where they want to go, but they want to change it up a bit.
Sure.
Right. Or they are very seasoned writers, but they want to change up a lot. Even then, my input is very mixed with theirs.
Okay.
So I'll say, hey, what do you have? Let's work off this. And then there's a lot of trial and error. So you'll try a bunch of cool stuff, and some of it might get dismissed. Some of it might be like, hey, that's the way. And then the more of the song that gets completed, the more you know where you need to go. And from working with them after that first like couple of sessions, you kind of already know, like, hey, these guys have very dominant personalities. Let's not go overboard. Or hey, these guys are looking to you for full-on guidance.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm here for it. I'm 100% here for it. I'm here to do it all.
Have you ever had an instance where somebody was like, hey, man, you're just giving us too much input. We need you to like back up a little bit?
No, not exactly like that, but sure. I felt the vibe in the room. So I kind of caught on to it, and, you know, just my best intuition there kind of caught on.
Perception is key.
Yeah. and I backed off a little bit. I have had before where somebody has told me, where I've given an opinion on something, like, hey, this part probably shouldn't go here, you know, and they've told me, no, this is the way it's going to be, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, I respect the opinion and just kind of move with it, you know?
at the end of the day, it is their song.
It is their song.
I get it. And I have to do the same thing, like there's days where I'm like, oh my God, I really want to take this picture. I have such a great idea for this. And at the end of the day, I got to pull myself aside and be like, hey, it's not about you. It's about
exactly. You just said it right there. You have to have the ability to really pull yourself away from the project at times and pull yourself back in.
Yeah.
And you got to find the little nooks and crannies that keep you engaged in the project. For me, I'm very vibe based. So if I'm trying and I'm going all the way in with this band and, they slip through the cracks, I guess, of my little pre-working interview.
Sure.
And they slipped through the cracks. And it's just really not working out for me. I'll tell them, I'll give them their money back and I'll cancel the session. I'll be like, dudes, I'm sorry I wasted your time. Here's the money back for the session. I do deeply apologize, but this is not going to work out. I can already tell that we're not on the same page at all.
Just not a good fit.
And then I'm very big on presenting a problem and solving it at the same time. So I'll show them to a lot of friends that I have, a lot of other producer friends that I have that I think would kill it on their stuff. And I'll tell them like, hey, and if they say, yeah, I'll even contact the producer myself. I'll be like, hey, I've got this band. They're great. It just wasn't working out for me. Would you be able to take a look at this? And, so on and so forth. And I've made awesome friends through that.
Yeah, and
out of the bands.
I think that's a great way to go about it.
Absolutely.
And I do the same thing. If I'm not a good fit for somebody, I'm going to refer them to somebody who may be a good fit.
Yeah.
Reach out to my network of people and, be like, hey, I had this client. We weren't really a great fit, but I think you would be a great fit for them. Here's their info, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important. And one thing that, we've talked about a million times is just the idea of being able to share information with other people to better not only, them or yourself, but to better the entire, music industry in turn. And I think you're kind of very similar to me where we are just so always open to helping and teaching people things. And like, I see how excited you get when you're like trying to explain something to somebody on like how like you're doing something in Cubase or like some technique that you're working on when you record, or even simply measuring out a room to find the sound spots and to actually treat it. Like, so you get excited about all those kinds of things, that goes to show that you do have that passion. And the passion for community, I think, is so, so, so important when it comes to a thing like this, because I mean, we can both agree that in the music industry, especially when it comes to recording engineers, producers, things like that, it's very difficult to find somebody who's willing to give you some of their knowledge, because they're like, oh, you're just going to come in and take my clients. But it's not like that at all. I'm a firm believer, and there is a client for everybody out there. I'm in South Florida, where there are so many photographers, more than I can even count to at this point. And for me, I don't look at them as competition, because they're never going to do things exactly the same as me. Even if I told them exactly how I do everything, 9 times out of 10, they're probably not going to do the same exact thing that I'm doing. And then, they're not going to provide the same service. They're not going to have the same skill level. There's so many different things that go into it. And for me, I love being able to talk about like the wedding industry or music or photos and all that shit that I'm like really, really passionate about. Yeah. So sharing that knowledge with people, I love it. I live for it. And I mean, that's why we're here today.
Yeah, man.
I think it's such an integral part of networking and meeting people and making connections and being able to build that referral-based business like you have, where you constantly are just getting, like you said, you don't really have a crazy online presence. Everything is referral-based. You have all these referrals coming into you because people are talking about their experience with you. And I think that kind of trumps anything in my eyes when it comes to working with a client.
Yeah, I know. It's like you said, man, you're absolutely right. And I agree with everything you just said, 1,000%. There's a lot of gatekeeping going around. And it's honestly, that's the old mentality. That's the old way of doing things. And honestly, that doesn't get you really far anymore. Maybe back in the days it would, when there was maybe 2 or 3 dudes that knew how to mix or record and everybody would keep secrets from each other. I get it. I know where the mentality comes from, but we're not in that era anymore.
No.
And, how are you going to give a younger guy a chance to come up if you don't teach him or you try to ambush him and stuff? I've been victim of that before.
I can imagine.
Other bigger dudes have literally just straight up ambushed me. They're like, oh, yeah, we do this or that, and they don't. And then I end up trying it and it doesn't work for me. And I'm sitting there for hours trying to make this work. Obviously I was younger and more naive.
Sure.
One of the biggest things I've learned, and it goes with the really, really good saying that a good buddy of mine, AJ, out in California, he's a big pop producer.
Oh, nice.
That he's taught me was, what's meant for you, no one can take. Because, like you said, it's all about vibe, man. It doesn't matter if you're slightly better at mixing than me, or if you're slightly better at doing something than me, but if the vibe isn't right with you, that band is not going to gel.
Oh, yeah, no.
They want to gel with me instead, right? So again, back to the band that gave me a shot. They went to a big producer. They loved their experience with the producer. Then they came to me, smaller guy. But they literally told me, especially the vocalist, dude, doing vocals with you, I just vibed way more. And you were more immersive. So they kept coming back to me. It's all
about creating that relationship. The relationship is the most important thing when it comes to your clients. It's at the end of the day, your relationship with them and their experience. And I hate to say this because I don't want to sound like, you don't even need to produce quality of work to be able to do stuff like this. I think the quality is so important. And I'm a big believer in like great quality product.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I think, your experience that you're providing, these bands and musicians and artists, the experience you provide them can almost change the perception of how they see the final product.
Of course.
If they have somewhat of a negative experience with you, they're going to nitpick every little thing that they hate. But if they have an amazing experience with you, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to be looking at it. They're just going to be like, oh, this sounds amazing. We're in love. We love it. Yes, yes, yes. And I think that's, client perception is everything. And I think when it comes to the experience portion of it, it's really, really, really important to connect.
It's like they don't allow themselves to like your work if somebody in the band or in the team or whatever doesn't like you.
Yep.
So, lately I've been standing by this really strict rule where if in the band there's a full-blown producer in the band, I'll ask them the biggest question is like, why didn't you do the record? Yeah. And depending on that answer, that will be super key in me saying yes or no to the project, because the last thing I need is me sending you a final and I think it's good. Obviously I'm not going to, let's just say right now off rip that anything I say quality wise here, you need to be good. You still need to be good.
Of course.
Like your stuff needs to be competitive. You need to sound with what's out there. You don't need to be the best, but you need to be competitive, and it's got to be big. It's got to be massive.
You got to produce quality.
Yeah. No, it's it's a gut check. I'm not saying you could be okay and make it. No, you have to be good.
Yeah.
All right. It's very competitive, but I can be good, and so this other producer in that band could be good too. Why would they come to me? But then they do, and I've had this happen before where I'll send them back a mix where I think it's great, and the rest of the band likes it, but that person has a problem with it. But then they start teaching you how they mix. And I'm like, well, why didn't you do the record? Obviously, I mix differently than you. Or obviously, I track differently than you. Why didn't you do it?
Yeah, what was the purpose of
this? Yeah,
this?
You could have just hired me for songwriting. If that was the case, you didn't need me to do anything else. It saves us both the headache and the time. Because time is, again, the most valuable form of currency I think exists.
I agree.
Yeah, time is money.
And so when you're doing these, kind of different genres of music, do you typically step out of your comfort zone with metal and work in other? I know you have experience working in other projects, but do you primarily step out of your, the metal realm that you're kind of working in now to do other types of projects?
Well, absolutely. So actually my own stuff is rock.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I have my own stuff.
What kind of influences?
Oh, man. Where to start?
The Bee Gees.
Man, you know what? This sounds cliche, but the Beatles, Nickelback. Nickelback. I love Nickelback.
Really?
I do.
Interesting.
I do.
Hey, listen, I'm not gonna harp on you for saying that you like a band that most people don't like. But personally, I'm not a fan.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
I respect it.
Well, I'll rephrase something about Nickelback.
Okay.
I love their songwriting.
Okay.
Like from a musical standpoint.
I mean, they have hits.
Yeah, exactly. They have more hits than any band out there, I think, right?
Oh, I have no idea.
Or I think 3 Days Grace might have just passed them. I don't know, but that's another
in the rock band.
Yeah,
realm.
In the rock world. Yeah. I'm sorry. I just mean to the rock genre.
Yeah.
So 3 Days Grace is another big influence on me. Bands that we grew up on, like Hoobastank, Chevelle. Those things.
I love Chevelle.
Yeah, I grew up on all those bands, man. Saliva, old Evanescence. So anything in that alt rock world, really love. I really,
cool.
really like writing that stuff. And yeah, my own stuff's kind of like that and that kind of vibe. I infuse it a little bit with pop because I also love pop.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, like dark pop and all that. Love that stuff. I don't do it enough. I wish I got more of a chance to.
Same.
But I do love it. But my bread and butter has been anything under the rock umbrella. So anything from rock to metal and metalcore and death metal and extreme metal. I mean, all that. Like,
there's so many subgenres
Let's just say
of metal right now.
Metal.
We're just gonna call it metal.
Yeah, just hard music, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
I just get it. I just get it. I've been playing it my whole life, for as long as I can remember. I've been in bands since I was 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm old now. So
yeah, same.
Yeah.
We've been playing music for about the same amount of time because I think you're pretty
probably
much
longer.
Well, no, I think you're pretty much the same age as me. Yeah, so we've been, because I've been playing since I was 15.
Oh, well, yeah.
So yeah, it's generally about the same amount of time. Granted, I'm sure you've played on a lot bigger platforms than I have because I've only been on a couple tours and smaller stuff.
I wouldn't say that,
but yeah, and a lot of my bands, especially like in the past, have been like punk bands and post-hardcore.
I liked your past band though. Your past band was awesome.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
I like watching you guys live.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. I want you to give us an idea. What if you had to pull 3 tips for landing your first co-writing gig? Sure. Or give me 2. Give me 2 of the most important things to being able to land your first co-writing gig.
Okay. So, I mean, first, this tip is like a joint tip.
Sure.
First, find the niche you want to do it in and do your own homework on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, prepare. You have to
prepare. Yeah. And how, like, in what ways would you prepare? Like just listening to music?
Right. So once you find that niche that you want to work in, you befriend the band that you want to work with. Mm-hmm. Go to their shows, show some support. Of course, and this is not, don't be conniving about this or anything.
Sure.
Just show legitimate support. Obviously, you want to work with this band because you like their stuff.
Sure.
So show some support, buy some merch. They need it. Check out their past discography. Befriend them. Ask them what it is that they're looking for. And then based on those answers, do your homework. Do your homework on it. And then, I'm not saying pester them. That's what I did.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not saying that. But, tell them, hey, look, I don't know what stage of your next cycle you're in right now. But if you're just in the demo stasis, you're doing demos and all that stuff. I've got a little studio going on. It's a little humble thing. Come, let's do some demos together. I'd like to be involved in that. Do it for free. Don't charge them any money.
I agree.
And blow their fucking minds.
And I think that's pretty important.
Yeah.
So is blow their mind 2? Or is that okay? So that's number 1.
Just one. Yeah.
Okay. So that was the 2-parter.
It was a 2-parter. Yeah.
Got it.
And the other tip is, this is gonna be funny. Don't be weird.
Don't be weird.
Don't be weird.
Now, what constitutes weird? Because I know myself, like, especially my first time meeting people or meeting a band, sometimes I just, like, I don't know what to say, or I get tongue-tied, or I just get awkward as shit. And
that's all right. Just don't come off like you want something from them. Stay genuine the whole time. Don't be weird. Don't start name dropping. Even if you have credits, don't start name dropping. None of that. Just keep it very genuine the whole time. And the reason I didn't include that in the first tip is because that needs to be said twice. It needs to be harped on.
Yeah.
You will not land a client if you're just not somebody they vibe with. They're not going to work with you.
Yeah, and I think that transparency and just the general connection is probably one of the most important parts of working with a band, because you're going to be working so closely with them that you want to make sure that you guys gel and vibe, as you say. Well, I just want to take the time to thank you for coming in and talking with us. I want to talk a little bit about the course that you're going to be doing with us in the next couple weeks. We're going to have Javi in studio doing a full course on co-writing, writing a full song. He's going to be doing some mixing, mastering, and basically walking you through the whole writing process from the beginning all the way through the end. And is there anything you want to add to that on some of the stuff you'll be talking about?
No, absolutely. So my main goal with this course is just a couple of things I want to show you here. And the first one is that you don't need super expensive things to make something that sounds inspiring.
Love it.
And great.
Love it.
You can write something really inspiring, or you can write something using very inspiring sounds. So there's nothing worse than writing to something that sounds like crap.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I will show you how to not sound like crap while you're writing using very minimal stuff, because you don't need all these expensive preamps and interfaces and converters, and you don't need any of that stuff. I'm sure you've heard those words before. You don't need them. You just need something very entry level to get you going. And I will show you in the process of that course how to get your stuff to sound tight and good enough to then even maybe attempt mixing yourself or sending it out to a mixer where they won't send it back to you saying, hey, this is completely like unusable, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it goes down to the fact of knowing how many guitars you need to record, like how many takes of everything, ways to do harmonies and vocals. I mean, there's so much that comes with it.
Dude, a lot. I can't even say this enough. A lot of the quality in what you record has to do with the prep work going into recording than the actual process of it, like itself. Like if that even made sense.
No, that makes 100% sense.
That is one of my goals. I'm going to teach you how to have everything correct for when you do this yourself.
Yeah, you're not going to just mic up a drum set, jump behind the drums. You're like, okay, I'm ready to record.
No. It is hard work and it takes time, but the more you do it, the faster you get at it, and the more you develop an ear for it. And, again, there's no reason why you need to buy all this super expensive stuff to make a awesome sounding. I will use the word demo, but we're taking this beyond a demo quality. This is not a demo quality.
I love it.
This is going to just be good. And you from there can choose to mix it yourself, or you can choose to send it off to a mixer. But I will get you to a point where it sounds almost mixed, like a bird's eye view of mixing. Like I will get you to that point.
That's kind of like your thing, right? You love like when you're tracking and everything, you basically have everything sounding like amazing before it even gets to like once it gets to the mixing stage, it's almost like you have a pre-mix done already.
Yeah. It's like a pre-mix. Yeah. I mean, you still need to mix it.
Of course. But it'll give you a great idea of the direction that you're going, because if you, like you said, you are using some really crappy sounds and crappy, guitar sounds and stuff. It's not going to be inspiring when you have to go in to mix it. You're literally going to start out the mix like grabbing your head like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah, things like this really help out the mixer if you hire.
Yeah.
Because you'll give them a direction of where to go. And it also helps you develop your own sonic vision for your project. Sonic vision. There you go. So that's my goal with this course. And hopefully, you guys get a lot out of it, and I will do my best to make it as easy to follow as possible.
We're really excited to be working with you on this. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Javi, for coming in and talking to us. Do you want to go ahead and plug some of your socials for everybody? They can follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you are looking into my work and you would like to hire me or anything like that, my website is jmelorecordings.com. So check me out there, and my portfolio is constantly being updated.
Cool. Thanks again, Javi, for hanging out with us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.